I think we're live.
I think we're live.
We are live. I'm alive. I'm well. The video is live. I know we're live, but hopefully the video is coming through live. All right. So welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, October 21st. And I'm joined today by Jeff Samataro. He's my assistant coach over on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding and Muscle After 40 Blueprint Coaching Program. He's gone through the program. He's one of my top students, and now he's come on board helping me out. And today we are going to be doing a live Q&A. So thanks for joining me, Jeff. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
It's always nice to have somebody else's point of view, and because you've made this whole process your own. Like, you've got your own methods when it comes to fitness and nutrition. I mean, obviously I've helped to guide you in the right direction, but you've taken it and customized it and made your own. And I like your feedback and opinions. So it's nice when we're having these conversations and answering questions. I mean, I might take my point of view on it, and then you might throw in your point of view, and it really helps to give a more well-rounded, more complete answer. And I appreciate that. So thank you for taking time in your schedule to join us here today. And first off, before we get too deep into this, is this coming through loud and clear? I think it is, because I can hear Jeff and he can hear me, but can you guys who are tuning in live right now see? We got Lee, we got Sean, we got YT, we have Neil. Is this coming through loud and clear, folks? If it is, just let us know. I'm seeing a loud and clear. All right.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. There we go. Can you see those comments, Jeff, coming through on your end?
I can, yes.
All right, good. Just want to make sure that. Good. Loud and clear. All right. So the way these video chats work, I know we got a lot of regulars jumping on boards who know the rigmarole, but in case you're new, and if you are new, I want to welcome you to the chat. It's always nice to have new people joining in. The way it works is myself and Jeff, we're going to be hanging out here for the next hour-ish. Sometimes it goes longer, depending if we got the gift of gab and we got a lot of questions. We'll see how it goes, but we're going to be here for the next hour-ish and answering your questions and topics of discussion related to building muscle, losing fats, any specific challenges you have when it comes to your workouts or your eating plan or whatever. Feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window. And if we can help you out, we will. If we can't, we'll try and point you in the right direction to somebody who can, or give you some outside resources. But we'll do our best. Don't claim to be know-it-alls, right? I'm not young enough to think that I know it all. I'm beyond that stage, right? I used to think I knew it all. Then I grew up and realized I don't know it all. The more you know, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So it's kind of a paradox in that sense. All right, let's see. We got a lot of people joining in. Just out of curiosity, for those of you who are tuning in, let me know, where are you tuning in from? We got Lee Dunnigan joining in. Who else? I think Lee's a regular over in the UK. Dario's joining in. Dead Fish. Someone Dead Fish is joining in. All right, you got a interesting username. Dead Fish Lord. Dead Fish. All right. Margaret's joining in. Well, William's joining in. All right, we got a lot of people joining in. Good stuff. All right. And let's see, New Zealand. Wow, William joined in from New Zealand. So this is the wee hours of the morning for you. I would assume this is the complete other side of the world. So we're in the afternoon. You're in the morning. What time is it, William? Just out of curiosity. Are you up early? Are you up really early, or are you up really late? Which end of the time? All right, let's jump in and see if we got any questions coming through. And again, the way this works, throw out your fitness and nutrition questions, and we'll just start doing our best to help you out. First off, I just want to kind of address something that I talked about last week. Is we did the Lose Your Gut Challenge this week over on Facebook, had a private group going through the whole Lose Your Gut Challenge. And I think it went really well. I mean, I try to step up my game every time I do one of these challenges. And this time around, it went really well. We had a lot of positive feedback. Right now, there's over 224 5-star reviews on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page. And most of them came from the Lose Your Gut Challenge. So, I mean, I appreciate all the support and feedback. And if you're interested in checking that out, head on over to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page. Just open up the reviews tabs. How you do that is go to the About section in the top menu bar, scroll down, you'll see the reviews, and you get real-world feedback of people who've gone through the Lose Your Gut Challenge. And a lot of the folks, they're seeing results already. Like it's crazy how many people have messaged me saying, you know what, I'm feeling better. I got more energy. Like the weight on the scale is already dropping. Like there's positive changes happening in as little as a week, which is amazing. And then just think like, what if we compound that, right? You're seeing baby steps of progress in a week. Let's compound that. Like, where would you be this time next month, this time next year, 5 years, even 10 years from now? That's when it becomes a massive life-changing night and day transformation, when you really step out and look at the big picture. And I know in your case, Jeff, like you've went through this whole process, and just share that. Like initially it felt slow,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Like from my point of view, I'm watching your transformation happening in real time, and I'm seeing like, man, like you're making good progress. This is happening fast. But then you would sometimes be messaging me and like, oh, it's not happening fast enough, right? You know, like it's kind of, we got that impatience attitude sometimes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Mhm.
just share that. Like, how was that when you were going through it?
Well,
Like your
it's
transformation when you started, like a few years back, whenever it was when you got on board.
yeah, well, it's tough at the beginning because you develop your own habits and your own routines, and changing those habits and routines and trying to live a more healthier lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
is very tough, and a lot of that resistance happens at the very beginning of it.
Yeah.
But as you get going and as you start to see progress, it starts to become quite addicting.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you start seeing the weight going down and you're like, okay, they're great, this is working awesome, and then you're feeling stronger in the gym and you're making gains in the gym. You're starting to get better at your meal prep, and kind of learning how to do it, like when to do it, how to schedule your meal prep, so that way you're always on track with your nutrition and everything. When you
Right.
start getting all that stuff dialed in, it starts to get really addicting, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you're like, it just becomes natural. And at this point now, I've been doing it for 5 years now. Like it really just feels like I don't think about it anymore. It's just who I am. It's a natural part of who I am.
Right.
And but at the beginning, no, you're right. And one of my favorite things that you ever said to me was, you said, well, you didn't put all that weight on overnight, so what makes you think you're going to lose it all overnight? And now that just hit me real hard when you said that, because you're like, I was like, I had to step back and reflect on
Yeah.
that and be like, you know what, he's 100% right. I need to ride this out.
That's
Um,
true.
yeah, and you also you said to me too. I mean, I'm a musician. I've been playing drums for 20 plus years, and you said, you know, you've been playing drums for 20 years. If I started taking drum lessons tomorrow, you know, am I gonna sound like you? And like, oh, this is a good point. It's a good point too. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but you fall in love with the lifestyle, honestly, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden it's like you stop counting the days and you stop being in such a rush. I think at the very beginning
Mm.
you're in a rush because you're like, it's very different,
Yep.
and you're like, oh, this is such hard work, and this is so. But then the farther you go, it's like, okay, this is who I am now. I'm dialed in,
Yep.
and then the days just start going by, and before you know it, 5 years goes by, and you're a
Right.
completely different
5
person than
years.
you were.
And I mean, it's just going to continue on. And I like how you put it that way, because very often when we get started anything, and this can apply to any goal that you're working on. Like there's so many parallels to fitness, and it could be anything, where it could be a business goal, any other personal goals. It could apply to music. Like I always try to use analogies to compare things, and there's so many parallels. But when you start something new, we are very often impatient, and we want that instant gratification, that instant feedback.
Yeah.
But once you get over that initial hump, then it's just kind of settling into the journey, and you like, you forget the destination and you literally enjoy the journey. And
Mhm.
that's exactly where I'm at now. Like I don't really have a goal, meaning like there's no deadline, there's no destination. It's just like I'm just keeping moving forward, one foot in front of the other, day after day, and enjoying the journey. There's
Yeah.
no end point. And when you get to that stage, it really is, it's just a fun and journey. It's just like, let's see where this goes.
Mhm.
That's where it's at this stage. I mean, I don't really have a deadline or a destination, or like, oh, I got to hit this. And then you feel upset because, oh, I'm not on track or whatever. Like there is no, it's just, I just want to be better than I was before. And just as long as I'm slowly moving in the right direction, getting better than I was before, then hey, settle in, enjoy the journey, and let it happen.
Mhm.
All
Yep.
right.
Spot on.
That. All right. So let's jump into it here now, because we're getting some questions coming through. Let's see. Sean's got a question. What do you know about Betaine? Good supplement. If I'm not, I'm just trying to think of this. I believe I'm brain farting here now. Right? This isn't planned. This isn't rehearsed or nothing like that. But if I'm not mistaken, I think that's an ingredient that you sometimes find in some pre-workout supplements. Like, again, don't quote me on this because I'll have to double check my my information, if you will. But correct, I think betaine might help to prolong the effects of stimulants like caffeine and things like that. Now, again, I'm not going to start going into detail on it because I could be totally off the ballpark. Jeff, are you familiar with this at all?
No, I've never heard of it. No.
I was talking to some people who are in the supplement industry, and if I'm not mistaken, this is like one of these more advanced ingredients that they put into some pre-workout products. But I'm gonna let this one go for now because I'd need to do my own homework to come up with some more information about that. But I appreciate the question, Sean, but unfortunately my brain isn't firing on all cylinders here now. I'd have to do my homework to figure that one out. We've got Neil joining in from the Philippines. Good morning, Neil. He's a regular to our chat. Let's see what else we got. Dario's joining in. Dario's a regular to the chats. He's also gone through the whole Lose Your Gut Challenge program several times. And he says, Jeff Cavaliere argues that lying leg curls are bad for the lower back. What are your thoughts on this exercise? All right. Okay. I've got a lot of respect for Jeff Cavaliere. I mean, obviously, he's got the biggest YouTube channel in the history of the internet. It's massive. I don't know how many subscribers it is, but it's in the multi-millions. Right? Every time it's just right. He's like, he's got an empire over there. So a lot of respect for Jeff Cavaliere and what he's done. And for the most part, I got to agree with a lot of his information. However, there's a however in here. I don't like it when people try to put out these blanket statements of saying, oh, this is a good exercise and that's a bad exercise. And they try and say this is good and bad for everybody because we're all unique. We all have different goals, different body types, different mobility issues and things like that. So for some people, maybe the lying leg curl does cause lower back pain. In my case, I love it. It's one of my favorite hamstring exercises. I do it on a regular basis. I do it every single week. I love that exercise. And with my coaching students, I put that exercise in their programs very often. So I like that exercise. I utilize it, and I've never personally experienced any lower back pain with it. Now, some people may. And if you find that, hey, doing that movement causes lower back pain, then guess what? We can find another hamstring exercise to do instead, because we live in this wonderful day and age where most commercial gyms that you go into, there's a gazillion exercises and a gazillion machines for all your major muscle groups. So if one doesn't feel right or causes pain, discomfort, whatever, you can do something else, right? Like, we're not limited. And I'm just curious, Jeff, like, do you do the lying leg curl?
I do, actually. I just did some yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of my, I'm just like you. It's one of my favorite hamstring exercises.
Right.
And it doesn't cause me any lower back pain at all. I think using manageable weight, that's one thing with that exercise is that you don't want to go super heavy with it. You want to focus on getting you want to focus on getting a good contraction, feeling the hamstrings work. Like if you're heaving, if you're like heaving it up and heaving it down and everything like that, then yeah, I guess I could see how that could cause some pain and discomfort. But I think it's a great exercise, and I do it practically every week. But I like it because it doesn't take a lot of energy to do, and a lot of leg exercises like squats and lunges take a lot of energy. And some days when you're going out and you want to work legs, but you're just feeling gassed, but you still want to get a leg workout in, things like leg extensions, lying leg curls can be great.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. And the leg curl, it's basically like a concentration curl for your biceps. Like that's an isolation exercise. The lying leg curl is basically a concentration curl for your hamstrings. So it's not a power exercise. It's not, nobody's going to go in there and say, hey, watch your 1 rep max leg curl. Like it's not that type of ego exercise where you should be heaving around heavy weight. It's an exercise where you want to take a moderate weight, feel the muscle working, get a good stretch, a good contraction, maintain control as you're doing it. And as long as you use good form and you lift within your means, you shouldn't have any problems. And this applies to pretty much any exercise out there. If you're getting pain, you're probably pushing too much or you're using poor form. And we could use that analogy for anything. Like we could say bicep curls. Well, that causes lower back pain. Well, if you're using way too much weight and you're heaving and swinging and using your back, yeah, you could injure your back doing a bicep curl, but it doesn't mean that the bicep curl is a bad exercise. It's just you were doing it incorrectly. So again, I mean, Jeff has several videos out there, and just from a marketing point of view, I'm just going to throw this out there, and you get a lot of views on your videos if you go out there and you say like, never do this, or the 5 worst exercises that you should never do, and they're very clickbaity and they cause a lot of controversy, and people can argue it both ways, back and forth. And that just drives the YouTube algorithm crazy, because in the comment section, there will be people saying, oh, yeah, I agree with Jeff. That's a terrible exercise for the lower back. And then there'll be people like you and I saying, well, I actually like that exercise. And then it just creates all this back and forth, and that drives the video rankings through the roof. So a lot of times when you're seeing big channels and they're putting out controversial material, it may not necessarily be that they even believe their own pitch. They may be doing it for the YouTube algorithm. In my case, I really don't care about it. Like, I'm here to deliver content and help people. And if I help a small group of people get results, but I'm giving honest opinions, that's fine with me. I'm not going to put crap out there just to try and get more views. Right? That's not what I'm about. So I like having my little circle, my little niche, if you will, and my little loyal band of followers who are making progress and keeping it real. So just as a side note, and again, I don't know if that's what Jeff and his team are doing by creating some of these videos. Probably are, just my opinion. But, I don't believe that there's a good or bad exercise. It really depends on the individual, what they're doing, their mobility, all that kind of stuff. All right, let's move on. Who else we have there? But this one. How important do you feel that LDL and HDL and cholesterol, layman's terms, levels are in reality? What? Reality?
The S and the A are right next to each other on the keyboard. So I'm guessing that's reality.
We got a typo there. I mean, William, if you wanted to elaborate on your question a little bit, how important do you feel LDL and HDL, I mean, like low density lipoproteins, high density, the cholesterol levels are in reality? All right, I think that's what he means there. Cholesterol is a unique topic because we need it for health. Like, your body needs cholesterol. I know the media tries to put cholesterol in this like, oh, it's bad, but you need it. You need it for cell integrity. You need it for hormone production. Even if you didn't consume dietary cholesterol, guess what? Your body will produce its own cholesterol. So it's essential. It's just, we don't want cholesterol building up in our arteries and causing plaque and restricting blood flow. Like, that's when it becomes bad. But it's not necessarily bad for your health. Like, it's essential. It's like everything. Like, we need it in moderation. So that's the reality of it. Now, I mean, if you have some specific questions about it, feel free to, chime in, elaborate on your question, and we can try and address it better. But I don't know. Do you have any feedback to add to that, Jeff?
No. No.
Fair enough. Let's move on.
Yeah.
What else is there? YT's joining in saying, are rows necessary to do, or can we get away with only pull-ups for back development? Great question. I personally believe that you want to do movement patterns for all the major movement patterns for your body. So overhead press, overhead pull, horizontal pull, arm curl, arm extension, leg curl, leg extension. You want to do a squat. You want to do some sort of hinge exercise at the hip. You want to do some sort of abdominal crunch. Like you want to work all your movement patterns. The pull up or pull down, whichever, both are very similar movement patterns. That's just working the one plane. That's the overhead pull. Now, that's an important movement. Yeah, you definitely want to do it. But I wouldn't neglect the horizontal pull, which is a row. So, and you can even change up those angles depending on the exercises and how you do you can have like rows at certain angles. Like you can have like a high pull, you can have a low pull into your upper torso, pull into your lower torso, and hit the back from all kinds of different angles to change it up. But I like working the body in complementary movement patterns, meaning like agonist and antagonist movement patterns. So when I go to the gym, this is like I usually do total body workouts. And I always think, okay, I'm going to do a horizontal press, and then I'm going to follow it up with a horizontal pull. I'm going to do an overhead press, and then an overhead pull. Always working opposing movement patterns to keep things in balance and proportion. So that's how I structure my workouts. And I'm pretty sure, Jeff, you do the same thing because, we're on the same page here. But just share your feedback about it. Like, I know you're really good at pull-ups, right? That's one thing that's a forte of yours. But just how do you go about it, structuring the workout? And
yeah, well, when I was first getting into lifting, I was really obsessed with pull-ups because I was very limited with equipment. So I work out from home and I don't have a gym, like all the gym equipment, all the machines and everything. And my dumbbells, I only have up to 50 pounds and I'm limited with my plates and everything. So I don't have a lot of weight to do like heavy rows and stuff. And I have a pulley systems where I can do some different kinds of row variations and things like that. But at the beginning, when I was first starting out, I didn't have all those attachments and things like that. So I did just a lot of pull-ups and I made some great back gains with just pull-ups and just pull-ups alone, mixing up the different kinds of grips, underhand, neutral, overhand grip, doing negatives, doing pull-ups with bands. I made some great progress with that. But I think it's just kind of like just to go back to like the hamstring curl exercise. It's just a different movement pattern. Like doing rows is a different way of hitting your back. And just like how leg curls are a different way of hitting your hamstrings. It's just a different function of how your back, of how you can work it. So you don't want to neglect one movement pattern. If you obsess too much about pull-ups and things like that, you can develop like overuse injuries and things like that. So being able to mix it up has been helpful. And yeah, I mean, once I started doing, and I started buying all those attachments and started doing rows and things like that, I saw even further gains with my back. I like with rows, like you said, how you can change the angle. You can pull to your hip and get more like of your lower back. You can get to your mid back, or you can get like a bar and pull like with your elbows flared, kind of like that, and get your upper back and your rear delts. And so you can hit your back in a lot of different angles with pull-ups. I don't know. I mean, I guess like different grips and stuff, you can feel your back in different angles and things like that. But I feel with rows, it's a little bit more versatile in that way, like to get your different.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, yeah, you can definitely hit more of the lower back with a row, whereas pull-ups, pretty much all those variations, you're still hitting more of the upper back lat area, just due to the nature of it. And it's almost like if we took the inverse of this question and saying, like, how do you think about only doing shoulder presses and never doing any chest presses? Like, that's basically what it is. Because just doing an overhead press. Well, yeah, it's great for the shoulders, but then you're neglecting the chest. Same with the pull-up. Okay, you're working your lats and that upper back area, but you're neglecting the lower lats, the rhomboids, and a lot of that meat in the lower back area you're neglecting. So you don't want to neglect anything. You want to have that balance. You got some new attachment handles, didn't you, for your home gym? New cable attachments. I seen that you shared a video to our VIP group.
Yeah. So I got a spreader bar that I've been using with a high pulley attachment in my power rack.
Yeah.
And I've been pulling from like a more. It's still kind of like a vertical, or it's like a vertical pull. It's not really so much horizontal. But you can adjust your torso angle depending on if you want it to be more of a row or more of a pull up. So yeah, I do a lot of those. One of my favorite rowing variations, though, I love this variation, is a inverted row. I love doing inverted, and that's really great for home gym, or if you're working out from home. Look up, and if anybody's curious, look up inverted rows and how to do those. And I've been doing those with a weighted vest on to just add some extra resistance. And I wake up the next day and my back is drained. Like it's a great workout. You can really feel it.
Yeah, for sure. It's basically like push-ups are to your chest, the inverted row is to your back. So it's a body weight row variation. I'm just curious now if I can. I'm playing around here with something. I was like this new setup that we're using for our live streams. I want to see if I can share my screen. Let me see if I can. I think I can. Let me see. All right, Chrome tab. Do. There we are. Let's see. Is that coming through? Let me see.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
There's Jeff doing his. That's the
spreader bar attachment.
Spreader bar. Yeah. I know it's for some reason it's playing the video on my screen, but on the video here it's not showing. Right?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know what it is about that attachment, but like I get the best contractions and like the best back pump and rear delt pump with that attachment. I don't know what it is about it, but it's great.
Yeah.
I love it. You can do other things with it too. You can do curls with it too.
Right. It adds a lot of variety because now you have some freedom of movement with your hand positions as you're going through the exercise.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. All right.
But like, that previous question about like your lower back with ham curls, it's like with rows, like I've always liked doing rowing variations like that because when I do like bent over rows, I'm always so worried about my lower back all the time, like T-bar rows, things like that.
Worried that you're going to injure it, or worried that you're not hitting it properly, or what?
No, I'm worried about my lower back like popping or something.
Oh, okay.
Injuring my lower back. So like bending over and doing rows and stuff. I don't know why. Like it's just like a mental thing for me. Like I don't like doing it. It doesn't feel safe to me. So doing rows like that with the spreader bar or the inverted rows, to me it just gives me peace of mind knowing that I can push myself to close to failure and really work it, but not stress about am I going to injure myself.
Okay. Have you ever had lower back injuries in the past?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, not. Well, I did one time. I was doing T-bar rows, and I actually did have like a little pop in my lower back.
Ooh, okay.
And I remember I just laid down on the ground, like workout over instantly.
Yeah.
Right. Laying down on the ground and just feeling like, oh my God, what did I just do?
Right.
And then I went up, and then all of a sudden, right, all the muscles around it just seized up, and it got really, really super tight. And it was, and I could feel it for like. Probably like 3 or 4 days after I had done it too. So ever since that happened, I'm just like, it's not worth it for me. It's not worth it for me to do those kinds of rows.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned that too, because very often with back exercises, if you lighten up the weight and like focus on strict control of form and actually squeezing and contracting the muscles as you're doing the exercises versus just heaving the weight, you'll get much more muscle stimulation, much more hypertrophy. And to kind of give you an analogy of it, like think of pulling over a lawnmower, right? When you do that, it's a fast, jerky, explosive movement. I mean, technically it is a rowing movement, but you don't feel anything in your back. Like you're just using explosive and momentum and speed to just pull that lawnmower over in order to turn it over to start it. Whereas when you're doing your rowing exercises, you need to slow it down and use a muscular contraction and not just heave and jerk the weight. So when you do that, lighten up the weight. Like a lot of times when people reach out and say, I can't feel my back working when I'm doing rows or whatever, that's a very common problem, first off, because there's a couple reasons. Most people have never trained to feel their back working, and it's out of sight, out of mind. Like we can't see our back. So it's harder to get that mind muscle connection. Whereas I can look down and I can see my biceps, or I can see my chest, or I can see my legs. When you can see the muscle contracting, it helps to give you that mind muscle connection, and you build that. You actually feel the muscle working better. But the back, you have to go by feel, and lightening up the weight, slowing down the tempo, really focusing on stretching and squeezing with each repetition will help to get more mind muscle connection. And the benefit as well is you can use lighter weight, reduce your risk of injury, and actually get more muscle activation there.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
let us move on. Where I lost my place. Where were we to? That was YT. Let's see. Gabriel's joining in. Let's see. What's Gabriel got to say today? Lee and Jeff tuning in from Germany. My diet is going really well, but sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night craving chocolate or other sugar bombs. I think we've all been guilty of that at one point or another. How do I get rid of them? Okay. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night craving something you shouldn't be eating?
Me personally, I've never woken up in the middle of the night because of it.
No, really?
No,
Yes,
no.
I have. Right?
You have? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've woken up in the middle of the night, and right. My wife sometimes says, "Oh, we got a mouse in the kitchen," because she can hear me out there rummaging through the fridge or something. Yeah, I'm guilty as charged, right? How you get rid of those cravings? First off, this is how I deal with it. If I like to satisfy it with a better option. So a simple one, like if you like chocolate, and this doesn't apply to just nighttime. This could apply to any time of the day. But if you're craving chocolate, look for a healthier chocolate alternative. So one that's really good, protein bars. Like you can get some good high quality protein bars that are actually low in sugar, high sources of protein that will satisfy that chocolate craving in a healthier option. So that's what I do. I mean, I'm a big fan of Quest bars. There's another one like the Built bars. I did some videos in the past sharing those. Those are another good ones. But you got to be careful when you're looking at protein bars, because most protein bars are technically not a protein bar. And what I mean by that is there's more sugar than protein. So it should be called a sugar bar. But of course, no company's going to call it a sugar bar. They're always going to call it a protein bar. But this is a great way to satisfy those cravings. Now, I'll be totally honest, it's not quite as good as the real thing, but it can be good enough to get you past that hump, and that you might acquire a taste for it, and that'll satisfy your cravings. So I've been known to, if sometimes in the middle of the night, if I wake up and the belly is rumbling, grab a Quest bar in the middle of the night. The only problem with the Quest bars is the wrapper really makes noise, right? So that's when my wife says, "Oh, there was a mouse in the kitchen last night," because she could hear me ripping open the wrapper on the Quest bar, and sometimes it wakes her up.
Nothing gets past Trish.
Yeah. Oh no. Since we've had our son Harvey, like our hearing is like tuned up, and I'm a very light sleeper now. So if he coughs or stirs or whatever, that very often wakes me up. So I don't know. I guess all parents probably go through that. I wish I could sleep soundly, but I don't. I'm a very light sleeper, unfortunately. So when I wake up, I sometimes get the cravings, and that little snack helps to put me back to sleep again. But that's my strategy for overcoming it. I mean, like, look for alternatives. Other things as well, like protein powder and making up high protein foods. I mean, Jeff, you put together a recipe guide sharing some of this. Like, what are some of those recipes you put together? The like chocolate recipes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't wake up in the middle of the night with them, but I get chocolate cravings. Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, it don't matter. Like, well, forget the time frame here. Like, what are some of your go-to alternatives to satisfy those sweet tooth cravings?
I mean, if you're just curious and you just go on Google or YouTube or something and you just type in like high protein, low calorie chocolate recipes, you can find a million. There's a million recipes online. And that's what I do. I have a bunch of like go-to recipes for things like that. Like I have a chocolate cake that I make that has like unsweetened cocoa powder in it. That's very low calorie.
Yeah.
Walden Farms chocolate syrup, which is a 0-calorie syrup that you can buy, or like zero sugar chocolate syrups are good too. Stevia chocolate chips are an awesome alternative as well. But if you're curious and you're willing to make these recipes, then you can have a bunch, and you can make them in bulk, and then you can store them in the freezer or in the fridge. And then if you have these cravings in the middle of the night, you could go you could go have one.
Yeah.
So, but I another thing too is that if you really want a piece of chocolate or something, just have it. I mean, but just don't let it derail your lifestyle. I think that's the
Right.
like, and I'm guilty of this too sometimes. Like I get super hyper focused and I fall into that all or nothing thing where it's like I go months on end without having any kind of cheat meal or something, and I fight in the urge to have this or fight in the urge to have that. And then it's like, and then I eventually I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna have it. And then I have it, and you know what? I wake up the next day and I look exactly the same.
Right.
Or it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, and I put it on this giant pedestal, and then it ended up not being that great. So I mean, I think it's not one food or one instance that's going to make or break your progress. You need to focus on the overall lifestyle and sticking with your important habits. If you stick with those important habits, then you can have things like chocolate every now and then, or a piece of cake or a piece of pie or something like that, and you're not going to gain a pound.
No.
So like this past Sunday, my wife and I, it was our 7-year wedding anniversary, and we went out to an Italian restaurant. And at the end of the night, at the end of the dinner, we got a cannoli. We got a chocolate cannoli, and I woke up the next day and I hit legs. And it's like I never had the cannoli. So just don't stress about it so much. And if you really want it, then have it. But just remember, it's like everything in moderation.
Yeah. And I like that, having that balanced approach. And this is something that I've obviously encouraged, the guys in the Muscle After 40 blueprint to go through as well, is nothing's off limits. Like, because if you say you're not allowed to have chocolate, or you're not allowed to have cake or ice cream or whatever your cravings are, the moment you say you're not allowed to have it and you put limitations on it, it actually makes you want it more.
Yeah.
But if you know that, hey, I'm allowed to have this whenever I want, but I'm just going to be smart about it, have it in moderation, you actually want it less. It's weird how that works. Right? As soon as something is scarce, it goes up in demand. We want it. But if something's in abundance, we couldn't care less, right? We don't want it as much. So I don't put these restrictions. And another strategy, you kind of mentioned this, is when I do get that craving, like, satisfy it right away. Like in my case, I try to satisfy it with a good option. Like, I'll have the protein bar, and I find like that usually works for me. But if you really got to have the real thing, well, have a small portion of the real thing, satisfy that craving, enjoy it, savor it, and then just forget about it and move on. And you can very often do that because, as you mentioned, a lot of times you'll have that piece of chocolate or whatever, and it's not as good as you had fantasized about it being.
Right.
And very often, if you let the cravings build, this is where people fall off the rails, because, like you say, I'm not allowed to have that piece of chocolate, not allowed to have that piece of chocolate. And you keep stressing over it. And this, what started as this little craving starts to build and build and build. And it's almost like a pressure cooker, right? And the temptations build. And then what you could have satisfied with maybe just having 1 or 2 pieces of chocolate and forget about it. Then you go and eat a whole box of chocolates, and then you feel like crap afterwards because you couldn't control yourself. So just indulge the craving, satisfy it, move on, forget about it, and don't make a big deal of it. So I like how you shared that.
Yeah, I'd like to add too that, like, if you want a piece of chocolate or something like that, if you really pay attention to like your how it feels and like your body and it, like when you have a piece of chocolate, like let's say you have like a small piece, like every bite of chocolate after that gets less and less satisfying, gets less and less rewarding. Like it's like that first bite is like, oh yeah, this is great. And then the second one, it's not as it's still great, but it's not as good. So it's
more
like
of the same.
It's more of the same. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, if you just take care of the craving and just have a little bit of it, then you get that craving out of the way. Then you'll be good. It's like you don't have to sit back and eat an entire box of chocolates or whatnot. Yeah, just get the craving out of the way.
Right? Like the second cup of coffee never tastes as good as the first.
Exactly.
Right. Yep. It's the same principle. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I know we could keep elaborating on this and going on, but there's a lot more questions. So let's move on. Like sometimes I get, I'm sure people enjoy it. But
I could talk chocolate all day.
That's my chocolate right here. There's another one. I'll say this is a follow-up question to Gabriel's one about the late night chocolates. And he says he can't fall asleep if he doesn't give in. This is another thing I'm going to touch base on here. I always have a snack before bed. So I don't know what your meal plan is or how you structure your meals, but the common trend these days is a lot of people say, oh, well, you're not allowed to eat after 6 p.m. or food eaten in the nighttime is going to get converted to fat or whatever. That's total BS. There's no time limit on, okay, if I eat this at 5:59, it's going to be stored as muscle, and if I eat it at 6:01, it's going to be stored as fat. Like it doesn't work that way. It's total calories and total food volume consumed over the course of the long term. And if you're in a calorie surplus over the long term, you'll gain weight. You'll because you're in a surplus. If you average a deficit, you'll lose weight. If you're in a maintenance, you'll maintain your weight. And the time doesn't matter. I mean, an analogy I like to use is like, if I fill up my car with gas in the morning or I fill it up with gas in the evening, like it doesn't matter. I filled it up with gas. Like it's the same gas. Same with your belly. If you fill it up in the morning or you fill it up in the evening, it's the same. It's still the same calories. And if you're having trouble sleeping, meaning you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're hungry and getting the cravings, maybe try having a snack before bed and something that will satisfy your appetite, make your belly happy, and that might allow you to sleep better. And I find that works for me. I don't like sleeping on an empty belly. No, I always got to have a snack before bed. So I have 4 main meals: my breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack before bed. That's my staples. Now, sometimes I'll add to that depending on how active I am, but normally that's a typical day for me, and I find that works really well. So that's another strategy you might want to implement. I think you have snacks before bed too, don't you, Jeff?
Yeah, I do too. I eat a lot of food. Like my wife sometimes she can't even believe how much food I eat. But the thing is, I eat good food. I make good choices with what I eat. I don't like being hungry, and I rarely ever am.
Nobody does, right? Fill up on that high volume, nutrient dense food, right? It's like eat more, burn more, like fuel the machine and stoke the fire.
Exactly.
Right. Neil's joining us. He says, due to my schedule, I can only work out in the morning, but before that, I need coffee, then eat breakfast. Due to acid reflux, I stopped coffee and my performance sucks. Any alternatives to coffee? All right. So he's working out in the morning. He needs coffee, then eats breakfast. I mean, if you want the caffeine kick, so there's a gazillion sources of caffeine these days. I'm guilty of one right now. It's an energy drink. This is a sugar-free Rockstar. I need it today because I've been flat out. What, you drinking coffee?
I'm having coffee.
Having coffee. So I've already had coffee, and I said, I don't want another coffee, but I need I need to be caffeinated and motivated right now. So I'm having a Rockstar. You got to be careful with this. Like you want to use caffeine in moderation, and I got to be totally honest here. Now, this past week running the Lose Your Gut Challenge, I've been burning the candle at both ends because this is a busy week for me, right? Like I know you're watching these videos here, but I was doing 2 of these live videos a day for the past week in our challenge group, really diving deep into different topics of fitness and nutrition. So hours, like at least 2 hours of video chats plus endless messages every day, and plus regular work and schedules and family responsibilities. I've been burning the candle at both ends. So I've been upping my caffeine intake to kind of get me through. But once we settle into next week, I'm going to scale things back a bit. But you can have other sources of caffeine. I mean, if you like energy drinks, that's fine. You can get caffeine supplements in like tablets. What else? There's pre-workouts. I mean, there's a gazillion pre-workouts, and they're all basically caffeine based. Use it in moderation, right? Like this is something, it's like a double-edged sword. Yes, a little bit helps, but too much can quickly become too much, right? So you got to be careful of that. And what a lot of times happens is people overdo it, and then they get to the point where they just need the caffeine to function normally, and it's not actually boosting their energy anymore. It's like it's just bringing you up to maintenance. It's bringing you up to your baseline versus actually giving you an energy boost. So if coffee causes acid reflux or whatever, then just look for another alternative instead. Have you got anything you want to add to that? Like, have you used any other forms of caffeine or energy besides coffee?
Yeah, sometimes I have like those 5-hour energy, like little like shot things. Like sometimes I'll have that. But I mean, I don't have any kind of acid reflux with coffee. I would say that could be a temporary issue. Like maybe after you stop drinking coffee for quite some time, then your performance won't be so bad. But maybe because you're so used to drinking coffee all the time that now that you're just stopping suddenly, that your body feels like it's missing something. But after a while of you not having coffee, maybe that'll go away. Another thing you could try too is maybe eating a smaller breakfast. So you could have something small like a banana and like coffee with like protein powder or something. So you get that fast absorbing carbs for energy.
Yep.
You get the coffee, so you get a little bit of caffeine kick. You get a little protein to keep you satiated in the gym, so you're not hungry during your workout.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's light, and it won't bog you down, so you don't go into the gym feeling heavy and sluggish.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, you could even just look into the whole acid reflux issue even further, because there may be some food intolerances there, and it might not necessarily be coffee related. I mean, it could be something else, and we're mistaking it as the coffee. But there's a lot of things we could kind of unpack there. But to answer his question specifically, there's a lot of other alternatives you can look into for energy boosting.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Let's see. We have Mr. the Dead Fish Lord. He says, Lee and Jeff, is it worth allocating any special consideration adjusting workouts to developing fast versus slow twitch muscle fibers for overall size and strength? You want to do both. And what I mean by that, you want to have workouts where you are doing high intensity, heavy, explosive training, and then the lighter weight, higher volume training. And the lighter weight, the higher volume, higher reps, that's more of the slow twitch muscle fibers. The heavy power training, that's more of the fast twitch muscle fibers.
Yeah.
Certain exercises work better for more explosive power moves. Certain exercises work better for the slow twitch, higher volume. Like, how do you go about it, Jeff? Like, how do you structure that? I mean, I recommend incorporating both, but like, just share your feedback on that one.
Yeah, like I do the lower reps for things like overhead presses or bench press or squats or deadlifts or something like that. And then the higher reps, I'll go for more of the isolation exercises. But I always start off my workouts with something heavy and low rep. And I work on exploding out of the sticking point.
Yeah.
So if you have like an overhead press or something like that, like I actually warm up that way. Like I'll come down slow and then fast up. Yeah. Right. To practice being explosive. And that can help you bust through a lot of plateaus. But I always start with that. And then I go for the higher rep stuff after I'm gassed from doing that kind of that high intensity, heavy weight, low rep stuff.
Yeah. I actually made a blog post and a video a while back. I think it's called How Many Reps to Build Muscle. So if you went to my website, leehayward.com, and just search for how many reps to build muscle, it goes into detail. And what it does is it breaks down all the big categories of exercises and say, like, okay, these are exercises that are ideal for heavy, low rep power training. These are exercises that are okay for mid-range, more hypertrophy training. And these are exercises that are good for higher volume, more time under tension training. And the general rule of thumb is the big, heavy compound lifts, like your squats and your bench presses and your deadlifts and your overhead presses and those type of things. That's the heavy, low rep stuff. I mean, obviously, you can still train it in the higher rep range, but those exercises are better suited to more heavy power training. Then when we get into the general compound exercises, like rows or leg presses and things like that, that's stuff that's better suited towards more of the hypertrophy rep range. Pull-ups, dips, this would also fit into that category as well. So mid-range, and that somewhere in the 10 rep range, it could be 8 to 12 or whatever, but somewhere around 10 reps, that hypertrophy range. And then the isolation moves, your leg extensions and your leg curls and your shoulder lateral raises, abdominal work, calf work, that works for 15 reps and higher usually. Mm. Now, again, this is general guidelines. I'm not saying you have to stick to that entirely. Like, you can do lower reps with isolation work as well and higher reps with compound exercises. But generally speaking, those are the rep ranges that work ideal for those type of movement patterns. But we do want to incorporate both. You don't want to just be doing all lightweight, high rep, or all heavyweight, low rep. You want a combination of both. And this is universal across the board. Like even if you look at like top level strongman and powerlifters and people like that, they still do assistant exercises with light weights and high reps to help balance things out, right? You just don't choose one or the other. You need a combination. All right, moving on. Let's see what else we have. We have Margaret joining us. Oh, we're gone, Jeff. All right. All right. I'm going to read Margaret's question or novel. Right. The Diary of Margaret here. It's all good. Dietary wise, I asked last week about at age 60 losing some muscle mass. I know it's a normal process, so I've increased my protein intake, reduced my carbs, knowing the difference of simple and complex. I've maintained 100-pound weight loss over 20 years by weight-bearing exercises, eating clean, and still couldn't seem to maintain muscle. This past week, with moderate weightlifting changes and moderate increase in protein, I can actually feel the difference more than I see it. It will come, and the question probably got cut off because there's probably a limit to how much. So I don't know if you have more to add to that, Margaret, but based on what you're sharing there, that is phenomenal. Like you're seeing and feeling the results already. So kudos to you for that. And I'm just going to hide her message there for a second, just a second, because I want to see you again there, Jeff. I was getting lonely there for a minute. You were hidden behind the messages. I was actually having a similar conversation with one of our members in the Muscle After 40 Blueprint program. I just literally before we got on this call, I was chatting with John. John's in his 70s, and he one of the things that he's really prioritizing now is increasing his protein intake. And we really emphasize how that is an important part of his training. And he's noticed the difference. And as you get older, it becomes more important to consume a higher protein diet. You need more protein as you age, not less. So, and unfortunately, as most people get older, they tend to eat less protein because, your appetite's not the same, or they don't prioritize it thinking, well, I don't need protein. And a lot of, the general population doesn't understand the value of protein. They just eat what tastes good. And protein is not always the ideal solution. I mean, my grandmother, prime example, like God rest her soul, she's long passed away, but I know in her later years, she was living off like bread, tea, and biscuits, like just very low protein, primarily just carbohydrates. And that was the type of diet she ate. Just very simple. And she enjoyed it, but I mean, obviously there's no nutritional value in it. And she suffered like muscle atrophy as she got older. How do they call it? Sarcopenia, I think it's called. But bottom line, it just means muscle atrophy, muscle loss as you age. So to combat that, we actually need more protein as we get older because the body is less efficient at utilizing the nutrients it consumes. So instead of eating less, you actually need more to get the same benefit. Because as you get older, like the digestive system is not as efficient. The digestive enzymes, we don't produce them in the same quantities. So we need more protein, not less, to get the same benefit from it. So as you're getting older, do not shy away from protein. And don't be scared of the calories from protein. Because this was something I was chatting to John about because, he wants to still lose body fat. And he was afraid, well, if I up my protein calories, is that going to hinder fat loss? No, it's not. It's very unlikely to get fat from extra protein. Protein is the most thermogenic macronutrient. So about 20 to 25% of the calories you eat from protein gets utilized in the digestion and absorption of that protein, depending on the source, right? Like something like meat or chicken or fish, things like that takes more effort to digest, especially like meat takes a lot of energy to digest and break down. Whereas something like a protein shake is going to take less energy to digest and break down because it's already easier to absorb. So how many calories will vary, but somewhere between 20 to 25% of your protein calories will just be used in the digestion and absorption. So don't be afraid of protein getting converted to fat. It's highly unlikely. I mean, it is possible if you were to consume ridiculous amounts of protein, like if you're into, I mean, I'm eating 500 grams of protein a day or some ridiculous number like that. Yeah, okay, it could be excessive. But for like a gram of protein per pound of body weight or even more, it's very unlikely. So don't be scared of those calories. Like consume them and you will actually feel stronger. You'll get more muscle recovery. Your strength and energy should improve. Like you should feel the benefits, especially if you've been on a lower protein diet. So do not shy away from that. And I know in your case, Jeff, like you definitely prioritize protein in your eating, even though you're not in your 60s or 70s yet. But you definitely do it. Hoping to get there someday. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Any luck at all. But yeah, I know you certainly prioritize protein. Like,
Yeah.
do you calculate it? Like, do you know how much protein you eat on a regular basis?
No, I just go by, I just try to have 3 to 4 servings of protein a day. I try to keep it simple like that. 3 to 4 servings of protein a day. And then there's some times where I try to like, I'll try to get some added protein in with like a protein powder or something like that. But
Yeah.
I mostly try to stick to whole foods, things like chicken breast and fish or steak or something like that. But no, I mean, I agree with what you said, everything that you said. And I think too, like boosting your protein intake will actually help satiate your appetite more and keep you in. You're not gonna be at risk for overeating because I mean,
fills you up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like you have like let's say like a chicken breast or something, right? You're gonna have one chicken breast, right? Who do you know that can sit down and eat like 5 chicken breasts? Right.
I'm sure there's some people out there who will, but for the most part,
The Rock, somebody like that. Yeah,
someone will, but
yeah, right.
Most normal human beings are not going to binge on chicken breasts, right? Whereas
exactly,
binge on cake, cookies, and ice cream or whatever. But yeah, you're totally right on that. And my general rule of thumb is protein and veggies with each meal. Like that's the foundation. I want to cover that first. So I always make sure that there's a serving of protein with the meal. Like there's no zero protein meals or low protein meals. Like that's priority number one. If it's mealtime, there's got to be protein in there. If I can't get the solid food protein, then I'm going to have protein powder or supplemental protein.
Right.
And it doesn't always mean drinking a shake either. Like a lot of times I will cook with protein. Like this morning it was high protein oatmeal. So just made up a bowl of oatmeal, stirred in a couple scoops of protein powder with it. I mean, boom, there's 50 grams of protein right there in a bowl of oatmeal. And it was filling, it was satiating, and again, great source of complex carbohydrates and great source of protein. So it's not that difficult to do it, especially with protein powder. And if you incorporate it into recipes and stuff, like that was a common theme a lot of people were talking about throughout the Lose Your Gut Challenge when we were doing our lessons about protein and the value of it. A lot of the stuff we're talking about here, we just really went more in depth with it. People were saying like, oh my God, how am I going to get that much protein? And when you actually look at the bigger picture, it's not that difficult once you start making some better choices and then making sure that you're getting protein with every meal, not just with your dinner, right? Because a lot of people, breakfast is coffee and a bagel. Lunch is whatever, a sandwich or something, or they skip lunch or whatever. Like they don't prioritize nutrition until dinner comes along, and that's when they get their meat, their chicken, their fish, their whatever. That's when their meat and veggies come at dinner, but every other meal it's just like filler food. Right?
Yeah. If you have like a coffee and a bagel, and then and then you wonder why you're hungry like an hour later, it's like, well, because you didn't have any protein in the meal.
Right. There's nothing substantial there. It's just filler food, right? There's no substance to it. Yeah. So make sure you're getting nutritional value with all your meals. Zim, I have no questions at this time, but keep up the good work. Thank you.
Well,
we will.
We'll
try our best. Zim's a regular. He's been tuning into these chats for a long time. I mean, I don't even remember how long, but it's a regular name I recognize. So thanks for the support. All right. Next we have Keith. Older trainer here. My diet is not great. Very meat and potatoes. Well, nothing wrong with meat and potatoes. Any real value in products like athletic greens and green drinks? All right, so you're eating the protein, you're eating the carbs, but you're not eating the veg, and that's very common. You're not alone with that one, Keith. A lot of people fall into that category. There is a lot of value in greens and vegetables in general. So greens powder, I'll just cover this. It's basically like supplementing your vegetable intake the same as we supplement our protein with protein powder. So if you can't get solid food protein, you can have protein powder. If you can't get solid food vegetables, you can have greens powder. That's basically all it is. It's just a supplemental form of vegetables. It definitely helps, right? I mean, you can get the phytonutrients and the green goodness of vegetables through the greens powder. So they are nutrient dense, but again, there's a lot of stuff that it's not contained there. Like it doesn't have the same amount of fiber and roughage and volume that you get from solid food, vegetables and fruits and things like that. So I would recommend working on increasing your veggie intake. And a simple strategy, don't overthink it and don't try to do too much too soon. Just baby step it. Better than you were before. Like even if you could add in just one more serving of vegetables a day, start with that. Like even if you got to kind of like force it down, one serving a day, and look for ways of, there's probably vegetables out there that you actually enjoy, especially if you get creative, like a meat and vegetable stir fry, or with your meat and potatoes, add some meat and potatoes and some steamed vegetables along with it. I always like to visualize my plate in thirds. So in your case, you got your plate in half. So you got half meat and half potatoes. But just shove things around a little bit. So you got meat, potatoes, and vegetables, right? If you do that, and like almost like the peace symbol sign, right? You think of the plate as, the thirds, 1/3 protein, 1/3 veggies, 1/3 carbs. That will cover your nutritional basis. Like that's an 80-20 rule there. That's the 20% effort that'll give you 80% of the results. So that's a big one. And even if you just start small, like one meal a day, focus on increasing the vegetables, and then follow that up with a greens powder drink, that will move you in the right direction. And then just gradually build on it. And vegetables are an acquired taste, right? The more you eat them, the more you're going to learn to like them. And eventually you'll get to the point where you actually crave them. Now, I know at this stage of the game, the thought of craving vegetables may sound absurd to some people, but I do. Maybe you do too, Jeff. I'm pretty sure you do. Yeah. Like every day, one of my go-to veggie meals is I always have a big garden salad. And when I say a big garden salad, like what you would normally mix up in a bowl and share amongst the family, that's mine, right? I had a friend of mine. He seen my salad bowl and he said, "My God," he said, "I'd use that for washing the dishes in." Right? That's how big the bowl was. It was a big cake mixing bowl that I had, and I filled it up with salad. And that's my secret for filling the belly and staying satiated. So I'll eat that, and that fills my belly with the veggies, and then I'll have my protein, and then I have some carbohydrates, and I'm stuffed, right? So I leave the table feeling comfortably full, and I'm never hungry when I eat lots of veggies. And it makes me feel good. Like that vegetable intake, I mean, it keeps you regular. It helps with your gut health. And another key thing with vegetables is it helps to balance the acid alkaline in your system, right? A lot of people are not aware of this, but protein by nature is very acidic. Vegetables by nature are very alkaline. So when we combine protein and veggies, we help to have a better pH balance in your system, and it balances it out. So it's better for gut health, better for digestion, absorption, and just making everything work like it's supposed to. So you don't want to neglect those veggies, right? That's a key part of nutrition. Okay, so any further comments to add there, Jeff?
Yeah. So I mean, growing up, I mean, my parents always made me eat my vegetables when I was a kid, and I'm so thankful that they did, because I've never had a problem eating vegetables. I know. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad, because I love vegetables, and I've never had any problem eating them whatsoever. But however, my wife is not a fan of vegetables, and her parents didn't make her eat vegetables. So what we do with her is we try to find vegetables that she does like. So like in her instance, like she likes Brussels sprouts. She likes like red onions and zucchini. Yep. So when we prepare those things, we try to prepare them in a way that make them taste good. So I don't just ever give her just a plate of raw vegetables, because she wouldn't be able to eat it. I could sit there and eat raw vegetables no problem and be happy. But with her, like, we have to put Parmesan cheese on the Brussels sprouts, or we have to put a little bit of olive oil or something, or a little bit of salt or something, like, to make them taste good, or a little bit of butter for on the green beans. And that's okay. I mean, if a little bit of that is going to have her eating more vegetables, then it's a good thing.
Right.
So, and we can slowly over time, as she gets used to it and it becomes more of an acquired thing, we can start to take a little bit of that away, or not. I mean, whatever. I mean, as long as she's eating vegetables in my mind, then I mean, then she's doing the right thing. So, I mean, find the vegetables that you like, prepare them in a way that makes them taste good, that you like. And then from there, just go from there. What I like to do, one thing I like to do is every week at the supermarket, I try to find a vegetable that I've never tried before. And yeah, and I'll put that in my cart with no idea on how I'm going to prepare it or anything. And then I just bring it home and I'm like, well, I have this big thing, this big leafy green thing here, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm going to go online and I'm going to try to find something. And then, yeah, and then that's made me more like it. I've developed a taste for more vegetables from doing that, because now I know what I like and what I don't like. And I found ways to sneak vegetables into recipes too. That's another thing. So sometimes my wife doesn't even realize that there's vegetables in certain dishes that I make. So like I make this this creamy chicken dish that has like red peppers in it. And like if you ask my wife, do you like red peppers? She would say no, but she eats them in the dish.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. I love that. I love the idea of the new vegetable and just figure it out. Right. That's something that I could take away, because I got to be honest, I sometimes get caught in the rut of eating the same foods over and over again. So yeah, adding a bit more variety would certainly wouldn't be a bad thing. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
And I like that idea of making it taste better. And I've actually recommended this to some of the guys in our coaching program who are in that same situation. Like, if you have to add the cheese, or you have to add some sauce or something like that, or you have a salad and you got to add some salad dressing or whatever, it's okay to do that if it gets you over that hump. But then you can look for either healthier alternatives, like steamed broccoli with some fat-free cheese melted over the top. I mean, that could be a healthy alternative that you could have, give you a nice cheesy broccoli, and you might really actually enjoy that. Whereas just plain old, steamed broccoli might be blah.
Yeah.
You put the cheese on it, it makes it more palatable. So yeah, there's always ways to think outside the box, right? Think of ways to make it more palatable and more enjoyable. But the simple answer here is just start small. Just don't try and overhaul everything from day one. Don't go like from no vegetables to 10 servings of vegetables a day. Like, that's too much. Start with one, just one more serving of vegetables than you normally eat, and then gradually build on it as you go. All right. This is good. I appreciate your feedback here. I knew there was a reason I invited you to come on the chat today.
Well, let's go. I'm glad I could do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Robert's joining us. Have you ever had a week where you say, forget this week? I think I know what you mean by that. I mean, we don't literally forget the week, but there's weeks where like you just like, I don't feel bleh. Like, I don't feel like eating healthy, or I don't feel like working out or whatever. There's times when you just don't have the get up and go. The get up and go is got up and went.
Yeah.
I feel like that sometimes. I've got my own strategies for dealing with it, but Jeff, you're on a roll. What's your, have you ever experienced this yourself? And what's your strategies for when you just don't have it in you for the week? And I'm assuming he's meaning when it comes to diet and exercise and sticking to your fitness routine.
Yeah.
That's the context we're going to use.
Yep. I've never had like a full week. There's been days where I've woken up and I'm just like, man, I really don't feel like working out today, or I don't really feel like doing this today or whatnot. But I always make it a point to just get started. Is like, if I get started, if I just make a point to just like put on the shoes and put on the gym clothes and just get to the gym and just start warming up, then 9 times out of 10, I end up having a great session and I feel great. And I remember why this was a good idea, why it was a good idea to start in the first place. So it's just a matter of getting going. It's like that old cliche of the hardest part is getting started. That's not
Yeah.
just like for like in general, like the hardest part of getting in shape is getting started. It's like every day when you wake up and you're going to go hit the gym, and there's
Mm-hmm.
always that first initial resistance at the beginning where you're like, oh, I just woke up. I don't want to go do this. I don't want
Right.
to go work out. But then after you're warmed up, you got your heart rate's up, you got a little bit of a
Yep.
pump going, you've done some warm up sets, you get the weight on the bar, and you're looking at it and you go, we're here, we're doing
Yeah.
this, it's happening now. And 9 times out of 10 it ends up being a great session. But some days it happens where it isn't, and maybe you warm up and then you go to do it and then you still just don't have it in you, and you're like, man, well, in that case, just give yourself permission to have an easy workout, to just go
Mm.
through the motions and maybe drop your weight and just do the movements, or maybe do like 1 or 2 exercises, or like just a couple sets or something,
Right.
or and then go home, or go on the treadmill and just walk for a little bit or something
Yep.
like that, because something is always better than nothing.
Love it.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, that's happened in days, but I mean, I've never gone a whole week, honestly, in the past 5 years where I've just been like, forget all this. I'm not working out. I'm not eating right. I'm not doing any of that. Like,
Yeah.
no, maybe like a day or something, but not a whole week.
Right. No, I love how you broke that down, and this is where the whole good enough and good enough consistently mindset comes into play. Like, let go of the all or nothing extreme approach, and just, it doesn't have to be perfect. Right? As you said, something's better than nothing. I mean, that's the stuff that I always like to use. And just to break down this whole motivation thing, I got something I want to share here. I've just been digging up something there. Again, share the screen. Where is it to? All these cool features that we got here. Technology is wonderful. Here it is. All right, that should be popping up there on the screen, I think. Yep. So this is the way a lot of people view motivation, right? They just think I got to get up and just do it. But there's a lot of baby steps in between the doing it, right? So like, as you said, just get started. So like, when it comes to exercise, instead of thinking like, oh, I got to go run, or I got to go to the gym, or I got to whatever, like in this example here, it's running, but put on your sneakers. Like, what's the first step that you got to do? I'm going to put on my sneakers. Okay, I can do that. That's easy.
Mhm.
All right. What's the second step? All right, I got to go out the door. All right, I can do that. Right. Break it down into baby steps.
Yeah.
Once you're out the door, okay, what am I going to do? I'm just going to start walking. Just an easy, casual walk. Just start strolling down the street. And then once you start the movement and you get that momentum moving, it's easier then to get into the whole process. And I use this strategy all the time. Like, there's times I don't feel like going to the gym, and I say, you know what? I'm just going to show up, right? Just put on my sneakers, just show up, and I'll decide what I do when I get there. Like, I don't even have a structure in mind. I just, hey, I'm going to show up. And then once I get there and I go through my warm up routine, sometimes it's an off day, meaning I don't feel up to it, and I might just literally do, a half-ass workout. But a half-ass workout is better than no workout.
Mm-hmm.
But ironically, just showing up, doing my warm-up routine, sometimes those actually end up being the best workouts, because you just get the blood flow and the endorphins flowing and everything else. And the next thing you know, you get out of your mental funk that you were in, and then you could end up having a great workout because you just decided to show up, right?
Mm.
But again, that doesn't always happen. Like, there are days where I will go through it, like you said, and it's just, nah, the energy's not there today.
Yeah.
It's not happening. And on those days, then I will give myself permission to just kind of go through the motions, like do
Mhm.
lighter workouts. I might do the same exercises, but I just lighter weights. I'm not going to push myself. I'm not going to strive for personal records. I'm just literally going to go through the motions, and that's okay. And something that we see a lot of now, because I've really noticed this, especially in the endurance world, because I've over the past year, I'm really focusing a lot on cycling and endurance and things like that. The concept of polarized training, and what they mean by that is the majority of your workouts should actually be easy workouts, like not killing yourself. And it should probably be like an 80-20 or maybe 70-30 ratio, where most of the time you're just enjoying yourself. I mean, you're not killing yourself. You're going through the motions, you're building that base, but you're not killing yourself. And then sometimes, 20 to 30% of the time, that's when you'll push it and actually be exerting some effort. You'll be redlining it, if you will. That's when you'll push the pedal to the metal. But that's not every workout. That's not every day. And learning how to balance that, like giving yourself permission to do those easier workouts, it helps keep the habit alive and builds that consistency. And that's, I think, the most important thing is the consistency. Like, think of your job at work. Like, there's always going to be days where Monday morning rolls around or something. You're like, I don't feel like going to work today, but you do it anyway because it's who you are. It's what you do. It's just like, hey, I'm just going to show up. I'm going to do it.
Yep.
Not every day is a productive day. Right? Some days you may feel lazier than others, whatever, but keep the habit alive. That's the most important thing. Keeping that habit alive, showing up day after day. And if you have an off day or an off workout, so be it. It's not going to derail everything, but keep that habit alive. That's how I deal with it. Because if you give into like the week, like where was the question again too? It was right there, the whole week. That's a disaster. Like, because that you're building the habit of not doing anything. Like if you just say, oh, I don't feel like working out this week, I'm not going to work out this week. Then next week rolls around and it's just that much harder to get the ball rolling again because you derailed all your motivation and momentum, and it's just you're starting from scratch all over again. Whereas if you keep the momentum moving forward, doing those easy workouts, just going through the motions, at least the habit is still alive, right? You're still able to keep the momentum moving, and you're not starting from scratch all over again. So, yeah, I mean, I've went through that when I got the dad bod and I fell off the bandwagon right after my son Harvey was born, and right, I went through phases like that. There was times like a week more passed by and I didn't show up to the gym, and right, there was more pizzas ordered than there was chicken grilled, and like it's not a good place to be, right? You just really, it's different, but you don't want to be in that rut. There's a quote I want to share here. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, says, like, it's okay to miss once, but don't miss twice. So if you do miss a workout, that's okay. Forgive, correct, continue. But by gosh, you're going to work out the next day. Like, don't build a habit of missing workouts. And the same applies with the nutrition. Like if you screw up and you cheat on your diet, well, you can miss once, but don't miss twice, right? Don't let that snowball and start to build a habit of missed meals and cheat meals and missed workouts and all that. Keep the positive habits alive. All right. How are you doing for time? I know we've been going for, I said an hour-ish. It's been going for an hour and 16 now.
I'm good. Yeah, no, I'm good.
Right. We'll take another couple, see how it goes. This is your question. How does one work up to being able to do chest to the bar pull-ups? So pull-ups all the way to the point where you're touching your chest to the bar. And I mean, it's the same exercise, but obviously you got to just have that extra oomph, that extra power, if you will, to pull it all the way up. In my case, I rarely did chest to the bar pull-ups. My benchmark, if you will, if I'm getting the chin over the bar and getting it to my neck area, I consider that a repetition. But I know some people go all the way and touch chest to the bar. How do you go about it? Like,
yeah, I do chest to bar.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I do chest to bar. I think a lot of people struggle with pull-ups because they don't practice doing like scapular retraction, right? So they're just dead hanging from the bar with their shoulders just like this, and then they just try to pull themselves up. You have to pull your shoulder blades back and down and engage your back muscles, and lead with the chest up like that, instead of just this, like a wet noodle. And then just, I feel like I'm doing a dance move over here.
I know. Who's there?
But pulling your shoulder blades back and down, engaging your back muscles, and puffing your chest out like this, almost like you're going to do a bench press, right? It's exactly like you're going to do a bench press, right? It's like you develop that arc in your lower back, and then pulling up from there. What I would do when I first started, when I couldn't do any pull-ups, because when I first started, I couldn't do any. I zero pull-ups.
Very few people can. I mean, it's not one of those exercises you just, as a newbie, walk in and bang out pull-ups. It's pretty rare that ever happens.
Yeah, I couldn't do any. So I would practice retracting the scapula, right, pulling those shoulders back and down, and then coming up to the bar, and I would jump up to the bar, pull chest to the bar, hold myself up there for just like a second or two, and then come down really slowly, feeling the lats while I was coming down. Feet would land on the ground, and then I would jump back up. So I'm doing negatives.
Right.
Pull up negatives. Yeah. And that I like the chest to the bar one because I feel like I can feel my back way more.
Oh,
when
yeah.
I do it that way than if I'm just doing like chin over the bar kind of thing. I don't know. Like I just don't feel like I get that same squeeze at the top.
You're not. No, it's not the same degree of muscle contraction for sure.
Yeah.
But
so that's how I went from 0 to, I mean, the most I've ever done, I did 24 pull-ups.
wow.
Strict pull-ups. And now I'm doing weighted pull-ups, but I always prioritize that. Like if I can't pull my shoulder blades back and down, then I'm not getting a good contraction. So like with weighted pull-ups now, like if I can't do that and get all my chest all the way up to the bar, I take weight off. Always prioritizing the squeeze and the contraction.
Awesome. That was a great answer. So there, Mr. YT, what Jeff said. that was great. I mean, I appreciate you for sharing that. Yeah,
I could talk forever about pull-ups. It's my favorite exercise. I love doing them. Like I do them. Like I'll walk by the bar and I'll just do a set of pull-ups. Like I just love doing them. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm good at them. I don't know.
Right. Well, you've developed that, and this is something else that we can just add on to that. If you want to get good at doing pull-ups, do pull-ups more often. And it doesn't have to be back day. Like you can do pull-ups throughout the week. It doesn't even have to be a structured workout for that matter. As you said, you can do it anytime. And one of the strategies that I use to get better at doing pull-ups, because that was an area that I really wanted to focus on as well, in my basement. This was long before I had a basement home gym. Like when we first moved into this house, the basement wasn't developed. So it was just, the ceiling rafters in the basement there. I got a barbell and I just kind of like rigged it up into the rafters of the basement. And I put a chair under it. So, I mean, I would prop myself up and I would literally do pull-ups from the rafters of the basement with that bar that I had hung across there. So it wasn't pretty. It wasn't fancy. Right? I mean, looked pretty ugly, to be honest. But I mean, hey, it's just down in the basement. Who cares? But I would do that every morning. That was my goal. Is I want to do a set of pull-ups every morning, and I did that. And there's that consistency, day after day after day. I mean, of course, there's some days that I'd miss, but more often than not, I'd get in that set of pull-ups, and just the frequency really helped to build up the strength. And I found that carried over into improving my strength in the gym, and it made a big difference. So frequency is a big one, right? Not just saving pull-ups for back day. You throw it in there on a regular basis. The more often you do it, the better you're going to get at it. I think you did that yourself, as you mentioned. You can't walk by a pull-up bar without banging out a rep or two somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not going like to failure or anything. I'll just do like enough just to get like a little bit of a pump or something like that, and then walk away, or just to practice greasing the groove, like
greasing the groove. Yep.
Right, working on the movement pattern. Making sure practicing being tight when you go to do it, so you're not like your lower body too. Like I engage my glutes, I engage my core. Everything's tight when I do it, and I have that. My back is tight. Everything's tight.
Okay.
It's a skill. A pull-up is a skill,
right?
And every time you go to do it, you're practicing a skill.
Nice. And that reminds me of something that I heard the late Charles Poliquin talk about when he was recommending tips for pull-ups. Multiple sets stopping short of failure. Like when you rep out to failure with any exercise, but especially with pull-ups, it diminishes your ability to increase the volume. So like if you just grab the pull-up bar and you rep out to failure, like your strength and energy is just shot. Like you're useless then for your succeeding sets afterwards. I mean, it's almost like if you're going to run sprints or something. If you go and you run a flat out 100% max effort sprint, you're useless. Like you just expend all your energy in that sprint. And yeah, you could try to do other sprints afterwards, but they're not going to match the same performance as you did when you just emptied the tank in that first one. So with the pull-ups, multiple sets stopping short of failure is a great way to increase the total volume of pull-ups that you can do over the course of the workout. So let's just say somebody can do 10 pull-ups, right? I mean, instead of hitting the pull-up bar and banging out 10 pull-ups to failure, how about you just do sets of 5? stopping at 5 reps. And by doing that, you may be able to do multiple sets of 5 reps, get more total repetitions done, really working on improving that technique. And as you mentioned, like greasing the groove, building them motor skills, and that will help to increase your overall strength versus just grabbing the pull-up bar and repping out to failure. So that was a strategy that I used a lot, was multiple sets, stopping short of failure. And I find that worked really well with pull-ups, but it can be utilized for a lot of other exercises as well. All right, let us move on. We've got Ryan joining us. A second now. Just want to make sure everything's going good. Hello, love. How are you? My wife's just getting something and she's gone again. All right. No. She was going to come visit me, but she didn't. Ryan saying, is heavy mountain biking with intense punchy climbs good enough substitute for leg workouts? I find it hard to mix them both. After leg weight training days, I can barely climb the stairs. I can definitely talk to this because I've done a lot of cycling over the past year. I do some mountain biking, but mostly road cycling is what I've done. It helps, but it's not a substitute, right? They're two different exercises. The weight training will complement the cycling. So I wouldn't say like, hey, I'm allowed to skip leg day because I ride my bike. I mean, now don't get me wrong, it's better than nothing, right? But if you want maximum results, you want to optimize your cycling, you want to optimize your leg workouts and your leg development, you need both. Now, you can be careful about how you factor that into your workout, because you need to allow for adequate recovery. So if you just did a hard day of cycling and there was a lot of climbs, like, don't expect to go in the gym and train legs the next day. Or vice versa. Don't expect to go in there and thrash your legs and then go and do a lot of hill climbs the next day, right? You got to balance it out. You got to have some active recovery in there. So however you go about it, you can either space it out. Like one of the guys in our group, Derek Raymond, myself and Derek actually did some video together sharing his success story, but he's been a long-term coaching student of mine in the Muscle After 40 program. On the weekend, he loves to go hiking, and big, long hikes in the mountains, right? So, I mean, one of the things we structured, like his initial workout program, we had legs on Friday. You know, like it was a push-pull legs program he was following. So it was like the pushing muscles on Monday, the pulling muscles on Wednesday, and then it was legs on Friday. And then after a week or two, he's like, this ain't going to work, Lee. He said, you know, I like to go hiking on Saturday and my legs are shot after Friday's leg workout. So we rearranged his workout schedule and we put the legs in the middle of the week so that by the time the weekend rolls around, his legs are fresh and recovered so they can go off on his long hikes with no problem. So maybe you'll have to do something along those lines. And it depends on how often you're cycling and how you go about this. Like if you're a weekend warrior, then make sure to do your heavy leg workouts midweek so that you have a couple days or so in between there that it's not hindering your cycling, and vice versa. My personal strategy for this is, with my weight training, I don't have leg day, back day, chest day. I have total body day. So I do a little bit for all my major muscle groups. And the reason I do that is I enjoy it. It fits my schedule and all that, but it prevents that delayed onset muscle soreness. So instead of going in there and thrashing legs with squats and leg presses and leg extensions and lunges and leg curls and whatever, which then it hurts to sit on the toilet the next day because your legs are demolished, right? Can't climb up the flight of stairs without holding onto the handrail. Like, I don't want to get to that painful muscle soreness. So I just do a little bit, right? I'll just go in there and 1 or 2 exercises, you know, a little bit of stimulation, then rest, recover, grow. A little bit of stimulation, rest, recover, grow. And I find that prevents me from getting into that delayed onset muscle soreness. So in my case, when I do these shorter workouts, like shorter meaning less exercises per muscle group, but doing total body, like I feel fine the next day. I mean, yes, I can tell I worked out, but I don't feel sore in any one area. So I can work out and then still go for a bike ride the next day, or vice versa. I can go for a bike ride and still work out the next day because I'm not, you know, beating myself up in the gym with these extreme leg day, chest day, back day, and whatever. So, you know, you can make it work, but you just got to modify the approach, and also modify what's more important. like, is the mountain biking more important or is the weight training more important? Both can work. Well, what's more important for you now at this stage of the game? Like in my case, the cycling is more important. Quite honestly, I know some of the hardcore, Iron Warriors out there, right? People in the gym are going, "Oh no, Lee's gone." You're one of those cycling guys now, right? You're one of those. I actually love it, right? So that's my main priority now. I'm not interested in being the biggest, strongest gronk in the gym anymore. I want to really focus on improving my cycling. So the way I structure it is the cycling is a priority, and then the weight training is like a supplement to help maintain my muscle mass, but also to improve my cycling. So if I have to scale back, I will actually scale back in the weight training to allow more recovery time for the cycling. That's the way I like to go about it because it meets my goals at this stage of the game. But when I was competing in bodybuilding, it was complete opposite. Like last summer, I competed and made a comeback to the Masters over 40 bodybuilding category. And I literally, for a month before the competition, I cut out cycling entirely because I just, on a calorie deficit and everything else, I never had the energy to do both. And I said, the weight training is more important at this stage of the game. So I prioritized the weight training instead. So you just got to prioritize what's the most important and then adjust it accordingly. And there is no right, wrong, good or bad answer. It's really an individual thing. But hopefully what I shared can offer some food for thought that you can start experimenting with. Jeff, do you still ride? I know you bought a bike.
Yeah.
Riding?
Yeah, no, I go mountain biking.
Yeah.
And I also do spin classes too. I'm a big fan of spin classes. I have an Echelon bike.
Ah, right. I was going to say it was the Peloton, but it's the Echelon. That's kind of similar, isn't it?
Yeah, it's essentially the same thing. Yeah. I'm a big fan of it. I do at least 2 classes a week. Sometimes I'll do 3 too. I might actually do one after this.
You're all cycled up now.
I know you were just talking about cycling, and I was like, I could go for a bike ride. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I mean, that's fun. I mean, I like that. I've got an indoor trainer set up, and I use Zwift for indoor workouts. And I like the because with Zwift you can do races, you can do group workouts and stuff. And I guess you can do the same thing with the Echelon. You do group workouts and stuff like that, right? So it makes it more fun and interactive versus just sitting there by yourself, right?
Yeah, it's great in the winter time too, as well. Because I really enjoy cycling because the low impact of it. I don't like running or jogging or walking on a treadmill. I find that so incredibly boring. But I love cycling. Like I could go for an hour and a half bike ride, no problem. Because it's fun. I think I almost view it as fun. It's like not even like a workout. Like it's like I look forward to going and doing
exactly that. And if you can find exercise that's fun, like that's a win-win all around. The way I like to look at it is, I don't even consider it exercise, even though it is really good exercise. I look at it as this is fun. And I use the analogy of like some people like to go out and ride motorcycles. I say, well, I ride a motorcycle too, except I'm the motor. So I would still do it even if it wasn't good exercise, because it's just fun to get out there and explore different places and just the nature and the fresh air. And I love the variety, because like some days I'm going out on my mountain bike and I'm out in the trails. Other days I'm going road cycling, and then especially, going off in some nice country roads and just different places that normally I would never ever go visit, but I'm going to go down that road because I'm out on a ride and I'm exploring. It's fun, right? I would do it even if it wasn't good exercise. So the fact that it is good exercise is like bonus.
Agreed.
Yeah, good. All right, we're going to get ready and clue this up soon, because I know we've been well over our hour-ish. Just quick scan here. Is there any other questions here that stand out? I mean, they're all good questions, but let's just see. What's this? Sirkan says, Quest bars are so hard to stomach. They make you feel full instantly. I actually look at that as a plus. If they make you feel full instantly, then they can help to curb your appetite. So, but I guess everybody has their positives and negatives to it. But I would view that as a plus. The reason why Quest bars are filling is because there's a lot of fiber in them. Right? They're high in fiber, which is, I view it as a plus. Very filling and satiating. What else we got there? Marley, hello, thanks for your advice. I'm male stopped working out when I was like, male stopped working out when I was 19 and now I'm 29. I'm going to start working out. What's your advice to start again after gaining 130 pounds? I may stop. I don't know. Anyway, bottom line, let's look at the bigger picture of the question here. He was working out when he was 19. He's 29 now, and he's going to start working out again. And he's gained 130 pounds over the last 10 years. Like that's a lot of weight. But the thing is, you gained 130 pounds over the last 10 years. Don't try to lose 130 pounds over the next 12 weeks. It ain't going to happen. It took you 10 years to gain it. You're not going to undo it in the matter of a few weeks or a few months or for that matter, even a year. I mean, you may, like I know some people do lose extreme amounts of weight, but the slower you can lose it, the more sustainable it's going to be. We're trying not to go on these crash diets, these extreme restriction, because that usually just sets you up for a big, massive rebound. But that's a loaded question there. I mean, the simple answer is, how do you start working out? Beginner, like just a beginner, bare bones basics. So, I mean, I've got a video series on YouTube called The First Step to Fat Loss. And what I would recommend, like literally just make it simple. Start for going for a walk every day. Like don't overcomplicate. Like start with that one action step and do it. A lot of times we overcomplicate it and we say, well, I got to go to the gym and I got to start, change my diet and I got to start taking supplements and I got to do this and I got to do that. And you start stacking up all the to-dos. And then by the time you look at your to-do list, it's like, that's too much. I can't do all that. And then you get the whole paralysis by analysis. And you're like, screw it. This weight loss thing is too hard. And you don't do anything. So walk. That's your action step, right? For the next week, right? In fact, I'm going to challenge you, Marley. Walk for a minimum of 10 minutes a day, every single day for the next week. And then join in next week when we do our live video chat and say, hey, I did week 1 down. I went for a walk every day this week. And if you did that, that would be a good action step. It's super simple, but it would be moving you in the right direction. And then we can add on step 2 next week. Right? If you want to, like we could literally do this. Like we could do like a weekly thing. If you're willing to meet us halfway, I mean, we're going to be here.
You're on a roll with the challenges this week, Lee.
I know. So this is the challenge for Marley. Go for a walk every day this week and then come back next week and then share and say, yeah, I did my walk every day this week. Right? That would be a challenge for you. What else you got there? Neil's thanking us and saying, have a great weekend. We will. Thank you, Neil. Glad to help. How much should the training, when I get tongue-tied, that's the time to start winding it down. How much should be the frequency of the muscle training? That really depends on you, your fitness goals, your training experience, and everything else. But simple answer, start with 3 workouts a week, every other day. That's a good, like, generic place to start. I personally do 3 workouts a week, and it's a great place to start. And then you can always manipulate it later based on how your body responds. But if you're not doing anything, that's a good place to begin. What else we got there? Here's an interesting one. Philip, is plant-based protein better than whey protein? No, it's not. And if you are consuming plant-based proteins, you actually need to consume more to get the same nutritional value. So animal-based proteins tend to have more of all the essential amino acids. It tends to be better absorbed by the body. So again, I'm not going to go into the whole plant-based vegan versus mixed eater debate and all that. But if you're trying to consume your nutrition from plant-based sources and you want to get plant-based protein, you actually need more protein from plant sources to make up the equivalent volume of what you would get from animal protein. So this is something that I actually just seen. There's studies done on it. Like it's not as absorbed and utilized as well by the body. So like if you're consuming a gram of protein per pound of body weight from animal sources, I mean, to get the same benefit, you might have to bump that up by 10 or 20% to get the same benefit from animal sources, because you don't get the same quality amino acids, and it's not as absorbed as easily. So
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I mean, no, again, if you like the plant-based protein and you're a vegan or a plant-based eater, then you can still make it work, but you just got to factor that in. What else? All right, I'm going to get ready and clue this up. Oh, wait, no, we got a super chat came through there. We got to address this one. Thank you, Mr. TS. He sponsored the chat. Thank you for the support. 3 weeks still going, strong lifts 5x5. I'm not sure if that's a question, comment, or whatever, but thanks for the support for the chat. Appreciate it. Strong lifts 5x5. It's a great intermediate to advanced program. I know a lot of people consider it a beginner program, but we got to like break down what do we consider beginner, intermediate, and advanced. If you're doing 5x5 with barbell lifts, that's not beginner. Yeah. In my opinion, 5x5 with barbell lifts, you are intermediate, right? That's a good, solid intermediate program. I mean, that's a program that's been around for a long time. I mean, it's got a whole, almost like a cult following behind it, but it's just based around good old-fashioned, consistent hard work with barbell exercises, and it works, right? I mean, if you work the program, it'll work for you. And I've made some great gains with simple programs like that, right? I mean, just 5x5s. What's another one? There's a whole bunch of those programs out there. Like Bill Starr, he was an old-time weightlifter and wrote a lot of articles back in the old days, in the early days of muscle magazines and stuff like that. He had a 5x5 program that was really popular, and I utilized it. And it had the structured progression built into the program, right? So like, it was a really good one. You can just Google search Bill Starr's 5x5 is another great one. But of course, the Strong Lifts 5x5, again, that's another awesome program. Very similar. I mean, there's a lot of carryover to both of them. Have you ever done it, Jeff? The 5x5 plan?
Yeah.
Right. It's ideal for a home gym setup. Like if you got basic power rack, barbell, bench, I mean, stuff like that is ideal in a home gym situation because you don't need a lot of fancy gear to make it work.
Yeah, no, it's a great program. It's a great mix of volume and intensity.
Yeah, it's simple. Like that's one thing I find is a lot of times a simple program that's done consistently and trained in a progressive overload fashion can very often outproduce some of the more advanced, complicated splits where you're trying to do every different exercise, every different angle. Like sometimes people can overthink it, overcomplicate it. But a simple plan that's done consistently, like sometimes it just flat out works. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's let's see. Philip saying thanks for the protein answer. Appreciate this program. You're welcome, Philip. Ryan saying great stream, guys. Awesome talk on biking. Thank you. You're welcome, Ryan. Awesome. Yeah. And Khalid saying appreciate you for supporting. All right, so we're getting lots of thank yous and positive support. Much appreciated. Glad you enjoy these video chats. I certainly enjoy doing them, and I actually enjoy them more that Jeff, you're joining in because you got some good value and feedback. Right, there's a lot of stuff there that I would have neglected if you weren't here. So I appreciate you for tuning in and sharing your insights. And I'm sure, our viewers appreciate it as well.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on. I'm really enjoying this. So, yeah. Thanks for making me a part of it.
Definitely. And we'll do this again. So hopefully we'll be able to squeeze in another live video chat next week. But in the meantime, we're going to get ready to clue it up. The replay of this is going to be posted up afterwards. And then we'll have the timestamps added in along with that. But if you have any questions or feedback, or you need help with anything, whether you want to elaborate on something that we were talking about here, or maybe you need some help with a personalized fitness and nutrition program, feel free to reach out to either Jeff or myself. And we have our contact information down in the description below this video. Like you can friend me up over on Facebook. You can friend Jeff up on Facebook. Jeff, you've got an Instagram page where you share a lot of fitness, nutrition tips and strategies. So again, all the links are down in the description below this video. So pop that open when we're done and friend us up, right? Reach out if you need anything. And in the meantime, we're going to get ready to clue it up. So have yourself a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Take care. Over and out. You can over and out too, Jeff. You're allowed to do that.
Over and out, yeah.
Salutes, right? Over and out.